Hello everyone and welcome to an absolutely incredible game from round 3 of this year's Sinquefield Cup. It is MVL versus Levon Aronian, and if I were to describe this game to a child, it would be something like imagine you were drowning in an ocean with no land in sight, and you know you're doomed, there's no way out, and all of a sudden, I don't know, a friendly dolphin shows up and, swims you all the way to the shore, and you are greeted with a warm lunch. So that is basically what happened in this game. And if you only, maybe someone doesn't watch the live streams, or maybe someone doesn't even know the results, and then you just check out the results, and then you're like, okay, I'm not going to watch this, I'm not going to watch this. You are missing out on a whole great deal. And let's check it out. Definitely an interesting clash of styles, because it's not even so much a clash of styles as both of them are always trying to play as actively as possible and to have a game, so to say. Not just have a static position where you think about where a pawn will be in some 50 moves, but rather, just the entire board is open, and let's make stuff happen. So let's check it out. MVL with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e6. Levon goes for the French defense. d4, d5, and knight to c3. We have knight to f6. This is the classical French. e5, we have knight f to d7, and pawn to f4. We have pawn to c5, knight f3, and knight to c6. No doubt a position you had on the board with both white and black many times. We have bishop to e3, adding more defenders to the d4 pawn, and a6 is the most played move. Sometimes they go bishop e7, c captures on d4. This is the more forcing line, is the second most popular continuation. Knight captures, and now bishop c5 is the most played here. Queen b6 by Levon, and Maxime says, yes, let's do this. Queen to d2. He offers the pawn, which may or may not be poisoned. We have queen captures on b2, rook to b1, and the queen to a3. We have bishop to b5. Again, all known theory, nothing really happening here. Knight captures on d4, bishop captures, pawn to a6, forcing white to show the intentions of the light square bishop. And sometimes you go with rook b3, sort of a nice Zwischenzug before deciding you might go bishop to a4. More often than not, bishop captures on d7 is the move. Captures, we have rook to b3, queen back to e7, the only good retreat for the queen, and rook captures on b7. And while it does look a bit shaky for black, people who play the French don't mind playing shaky positions because they're not really shaky, they only appear that way. And the queen h4 is sort of the idea that is being played here the most. Rook to c8, another move. And even if you play queen h4, check g3, then you go back to d8, and then you attack the rook with queen to c8. So this is perfectly fine for black. But Levon avoids that. He goes queen to d8 right away. We have castles and queen to c8. So they didn't feel the need to include this queen to h4 check. And now there's the pawn on g2 instead of on g3. Definitely something MVL has to take into consideration. But as you can see, they are both playing this instantly, burning 0 time. In fact, they are gaining time, so they both know what's what here. We have rook to b3. First move where MVL spent a few minutes, and now again, there are some moves you can play here, but queen to c4 is the move Levon plays. We have knight to d1 and bishop to c5. Offering a trade of bishops, we have pawn to c3 and the bishop back to e7. We have knight to e3, chasing away the queen. Queen back to c8, and now pawn to f5. And there is a game that reached this position. It was last year between Hannes Stefansson and Jakub Fuss, where Hannes won a very nice game. Jakub played bishop to g5, and after queen to f2, black had a very difficult game. But here, after f5, Levon just plays e captures on f5. He says, let's play the most exciting game possible. And it is now only as of move 21 that we have a completely new game. So, okay, he captures on f5, but he weakened d5, so MVL captures. Knight captures on d5 and bishop to d8, not allowing the knight to capture and also controlling the knight from d8. And here you could play a nice move like pawn to c4, and white is very happy. If, for example, black captures on c4, you can just play knight b6, force a trade of bishops, and after, let's say, bishop captures, you're going to play bishop captures. You can never really castle here. The bishop on d7 is hanging, and if you play bishop to e6 first, then rook to c1, white fully mobilizes his pieces, and it's going to be very hard. The bishop can come to c5, cut off the black king from castling, and objectively, white is close to winning here, but not MVL. After bishop to d8, MVL wants to also play the most exciting game possible, plays pawn to e6. Attacks the bishop, attacks the f7 pawn, opens up the bishop's path to the g7 pawn. And the question is, what can MVL do? What can Levon do here? Now, the first move that comes to mind, obviously, bishop captures on e6. Can you play this? Yes, you most certainly can. But after pawn to c4, it's not all that easy to maneuver this because you will have a lot of weaknesses here. Queen captures on c4 is a possibility. Then you can go bishop captures on g7, or you can go knight to f4, put pressure on the bishop on e6. But if you castle, this is where the magic really happens. You can never castle because bishop captures on g7 and black resigns. Point is that after king captures, there's rook to g3 check, king to h8, and now, of course, you bring the queen in. You want to checkmate on g7. Rook g8 seems like everything is perfectly fine. There's no checkmate. All of a sudden, knight f6, and there's no defense. It's checkmate, or you capture the knight and then captures rook g7 and queen captures on g7 checkmate. So this is not an easy position to decipher. Levon plays f captures, and this is, well, both moves are possible. This one also guards the f5 pawn, but it allows bishop captures on g7 right away, which is what MVL goes for. Bishop captures on g7. And there's no point in capturing the knight. You just captured the rook, and now that black king will get destroyed very quickly. So after bishop g7, rook to g8 by Levon, he said, all right, I'm just going to go for a nice counterattack. We have knight to f6 check, bishop captures, and bishop to c6. And imagine if Levon saw all this way up to this point, and that's why he didn't play queen to h4 check, so the pawn would not be on g3. Now the pawn is attacked, and MVL has to waste a move. He plays pawn to g3, defends, and now rook to g6, attacking the bishop on f6, bishop e5, and bishop to b5, attacking the rook, but also blocking the b file for the rook on b3. Rook to e1 and queen to c5 with check. Okay, the rook nicely defends the bishop, so it's not a problem. Bishop to d4 and rook to d8. Levon offers a queen trade, captures for captures, but MVL says no thank you. Obviously not queen d1, plays queen to f4, and okay, what can you play here? Levon goes queen d5, and it comes with a pretty big threat of bishop to c6, and then it's just game over. So rook to e5 chases away the queen, queen to c4, and now rook back to b2. We have rook to d5, offering a trade of rooks, and this would be an excellent position for you to make a terrible mistake. It seems like you can capture on e5, on f5, because, well, the e pawn is pinned, and if rook captures, you can just capture. But you could easily blunder mate with queen to f1. So obviously, none of you were considering that. So rook captures on d5. We have queen captures on d5, again with some threats of bishop to c6, but now it's a little bit different because the rook has access to b8. And we have queen to b8 with check, and Levon has to play king to f7. King to f7, and then whatever check you can just block, and it's perfectly fine. However, after queen to b8 check, Levon defended with queen to d8, and now Maxime's position is winning. But you have to see, you know, quite a lot to win this position. So what would you play here with white? That is the question, and that is why we are making these videos. You know, as they say, when in doubt, centralize your queen. Queen to e5, and the problem here is that Levon is without a move. There's no good move that you can make here. Levon played the absolute best move. He played the queen to g5 because, well, if you allow just queen h8 check for queen captures on h7, the rook becomes weak. That's game over. So he played queen g5, which defends the rook and threatens pawn to f4, sort of as some sort of a defensive measure. But it's still winning for white. But again, you have to play the most precise idea. And you could easily be tricked that queen to g5 was played to defend the rook, but it was also played to threaten queen c1 check. That's also a big problem, because then after queen c1 check, king has to go to the second rank, and then the rook is also captured with check. So you have to prevent this. Rook b1, only winning move. Pawn to f4, Levon now offers a queen trade and puts a little bit of pressure on the white king as well. queen to b8 with check. Again, the only move that wins. King to e7, queen to c7 with check, king e8, and queen to b8 with check. Not really interested in a repetition, but they are both very low on time, and Maxime wants to reach time control, so he has time to figure out what's what. King to e7, queen to c7 with check, king e8, and now pawn to c4. And this is the problem. The bishop cannot move, otherwise you get checkmated, so that means MVL just wins the bishop. F captures on g3, hoping that MVL is hasty and takes the bishop right away. But if you do this, then you're just gonna, get checkmated. Queen g2 check, king e3, rook g3 check, king to f4, rook f3 check, king to e5, rook to f5 check captures, and queen to d5 will be checkmate. So after f captures on g3, queen to c8 with check, and now you cannot go anywhere. If you go to f7, rook to f1 is coming. If you go to a dark square, then a nice bishop c5 check, and of course a nice checkmate on f8. So after queen to c8 check, only thing Levon can do is bring back the queen, and now MVL just gobbles up the bishop. Queen captures, king captures, and c captures on b5. We have g captures on h2 check, king captures and a captures on b5, followed by rook captures on b5. And this is the position where Levon has a pawn for a bishop. So it's winning for white, but these endgames can be very tricky, as you'll see. Rook to g4. Okay, putting pressure on the bishop a little bit. Bishop to b2, king to c7. We have king to h3, rook e4. King to g3 and king to c6. Okay, all nicely played. Rook to a5 and pawn to h5. Levon offers the pawn. The idea being that if the pawn is captured, you can go rook e2, and you can no longer stop the loss of the pawn. If the bishop moves, you just capture the pawn, and we all know that you cannot trade rooks. If you trade rooks, captures, then yes, you're up a full piece, but you have a pawn queening on a light square and a dark square bishop, and everyone, including your uncle, knows this is a draw. So after h5, king to f3, and now rook to c4. And I don't think Levon, even in his wildest dreams, I know he's always hoping, he always plays it out until the very end, up to the point where it would be in poor taste to continue the game. But here, I don't think he was hoping for this. MVL played a move that ruins his entire position. First, I'm going to show you how difficult it is to actually win this. You would have to play pawn to a3. First, you put a pawn on a dark square, because you do have a dark square bishop. Then, okay, let's say Levon starts pushing. You put the rook behind the passed pawn. Okay, let's say rook c2. You don't really care about this pawn. And now, if bishop to g7, as the bishop is also attacked, you go rook a2. You put the rook behind the passed pawn, and now bishop to f8 defends. Okay, you go rook to h2. You defend the pawn on h4, bishop to b4. And again, how do you win this? Well, pawn to h3, you will play king to g3, rook h1, and now you're going to play rook e5. And this is the only way to win. You first win this pawn, then you win this pawn, and then you advance this pawn to victory using both bishop and rook. And if king to d7, seems like the king is defending the pawn, but now comes the magic. You waste a move, rook e4. And not a lot for black to do here. If the king moves, you cannot go to the dark squares. The bishop covers that. You pick up the pawn, then you focus on this pawn. Or if you push the pawn, then just king g2. The rook has to move. You pick up this pawn, then you pick up this pawn, and then you use all of your forces to escort the passed a pawn up the board without trading rooks. If you trade rooks, you can no longer win this. However, MVL played bishop to f6, and it kind of is the same idea. You want to play a3, you want to play bishop to e7, maybe bishop to f8, if challenged by king d7. And he does know, of course he knows what to do this, but he failed tactically. And the question is, can you spot it? There's only one move for Levon here that, that's the Dolphin from the beginning of the story. Have at it. Find the Dolphin. The move is, of course, rook to c5. And this is combining everything: the wrong squared bishop, the fact that you cannot trade rooks. This is everything, culminating into one perfect endgame. And of course, we already said that you cannot trade. The king will just go to a light square. You can give up both of the pawns, you don't care, and the white is never winning this. If after rook c5 you go rook to a8, then rook f5 check, the worst possible square for the bishop. You pick up the bishop, and then you're actually up a pawn. So of course, MVL goes rook to a6 with check, but now king b7. And again, the rook is hanging and the rook to f5. The check is coming. Rook captures on e6. It seems that you will not be losing any pieces, but here comes rook to a5. Rook to a5, and that's the point. Now you're going to lose the a pawn, and without the a pawn, we all know that rook and bishop versus a rook is a well-known draw. So that's the problem here. And rook to e2, defending the pawn. Again, rook f5 check, you just pick up the bishop. So this is, this is just perfection. Bishop to d4, and Levon just gobbles up the a2 pawn, and with it, any MVL, any chances MVL might have had for a victory in this game. But okay, MVL made a mistake. Perhaps Levon can make a mistake as well. So of course, MVL will continue playing. Rook b6 check. King to c7, we have king to e4, rook to a5, and rook to h6. So going after the pawn, king b7, king to d3, we have rook to a6 offering to trade pawns, and Levon happily captures. We have, happily captures the pawn. We have king to c6 and king to a4. We have rook to a4 and rook to h6, or rather MVL gobbles up the pawn, not Levon. We have king to b5 and king to d5. So it's still bishop and rook versus rook. You can still lose this. It's not as impossible as you might think. Rook to b4, we have rook to h8, rook to b3, and rook to a8. We have rook to b4, bishop to c3, and rook to b3. We have rook to b8 with check, king to a4, nicely defending the bishop, and rook to c8, defending the bishop from c8. King to b5, rook to c6, and king to a4. We have king to c4, rook to b4 with check. Levon says, come on, let's shake hands, because if you capture, of course, it's a draw by stalemate. So MVL says, nope, not yet. King d3, we have king to b5, and now, okay, bishop captures on b4. And this is a funny moment, because you could, it is possible for your brain to malfunction for a microsecond, and then you just automatically recapture, and then it's lost. But of course, Levon didn't do all of this to fail here. He plays king captures on c6, and we have the best kind of draw, a draw by insufficient material. So there you have it. That's the Dolphin of the story. Absolutely incredible stuff. It's not easy to win. And even MVL had half an hour on the clock when he made that bishop to f5 move, and I'm pretty sure he was, very sad. He squandered the white pieces like this, and he played a beautiful game, a beautiful attack against the French. We all love to see the French getting crushed, but Levon was able to persevere all the way through it, and just drew an impossible game. This was beautiful to watch, and really hope you guys enjoyed it. And as this is round 3, I always say we show the standings for the first time after round 3. That means that Levon remains in the co-lead. He almost dropped out, but it's Fabiano, Levon, and Pragnananda with 2 points. With a point and a half, Wesley So, MVL, Sam Sevian, Alireza Firuja, and Gukesh. With a point, Young Krzysztof Duda and Nodirbek Abdusattorov having a tough start to the tournament. But, he often does this, and then he goes on a winning streak. So, you never know where Nodirbek will, climb up at the end of the tournament. So yeah, brilliant stuff by both of them. MVL outplayed him, but then Levon really outplayed him. Beautiful game. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Gerhard Henkelmann, Derek King, Heran Escalante Jr., Robert Kiefer, and Edmund Freeman for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you want to increase your chances at spotting dolphins, first link in the description below, download Lotus Chess, and, find every and any dolphin anywhere. See you soon.